Council of Ghana has called on government and the security agencies to arrest and prosecute persons involved in the collapse of the 7 indigenous banks. The council says it finds it inappropriate and unacceptable the use of public funds in bailing out distressed banks that end up in the pockets of individuals. Speaking at a synod of the Global Evangelical Church at the University of Ghana, General Secretary of the Council, Reverend Cyril Fayose, said only a thorough investigation and prosecution will help restore public confidence in the banking sector.
I would like to say here for the record that the Christian Council wants to commend the governor of the Bank of Ghana and his team for exposing the rot in the banking system in Ghana and for actually closing down 7 of the banks. We also want to place on record that the Christian Council of Ghana thinks that all those who are culpable in this matter, be they staff of the Bank of Ghana or directors of the closed banks, should be prosecuted, should face the full rigors of the law as much as possible. Because the amount of money that we hear has gone into this bailing out of these banks is enough to do a lot of social interventions in our country.
The council called for broader consultation on the yet-to-be-rolled-out double-track SHS academic calendar to accommodate the huge numbers entering senior high school next month. According to Reverend Fayose, a pilot of the initiative would have been the ideal approach. He therefore wants government to listen to opinions and concerns expressed by interest groups.
The semester and double-track system of the SHS senior high schools calls for a detailed, continuous engagement with all stakeholders. I want to commend the government for its tireless effort not to leave any child behind. I think that is a good thing, and it must be commended. But in your attempt to do a good thing, it is important that you take everyone along. So the council, the Christian Council, calls on the government to engage all stakeholders, including churches and other faith-based organizations, traditional leaders, parent-teacher organizations, the Ghana Education Service, and the entire nation. I think there is a need for the general public to have opportunity to understand the proposal and to engage the system meaningfully. The council would have wished that the program or the project would have been piloted first before a full-blown implementation. But having not done that, we admonish the public to be objective in such matters of national interest. Our discussion should move towards national interest and the future of the Ghanaian youth.
President Akufo-Addo on his part said that creeping popularity contests and show of wealth amongst men of God and churches is fueling calls for the taxation of churches. For him, the deviation of the church from building schools, hospitals and other social intervention programs is making the case valid. He was addressing the Synod of the Global Church.
These are interesting times for all of us in our country as we grapple with the task of building a happy and prosperous nation. It could not be lost on anyone that there are increasing calls for churches to be taxed. It is not difficult to see what is driving these calls. For years, the churches were seen as leading the drive for development. They built and ran schools and hospitals. They led the campaign for good sanitation. Cleanliness was next to godliness. They preached and practiced. There were church services where worshippers sang to their heart's content. But there was no question of keeping whole communities awake night after night. Nor were there churches that were sources of noise nuisance. The priests in churches, leaders led their lives that the average person could identify with. I am not getting into the merits and demerits of the prosperity gospel that appears to the main theme for many of our present-day churches. But the difficult truth is that once you get into the wealth and prosperity sphere, you necessarily slip and concentrate on being outrageous. It is not surprising that there are calls for taxes to be imposed on church incomes. When you step out of the charity sphere, out of education, and out of healthcare, you're putting yourself in the line of the taxman. Both institutions, that is government and the church, are leading the people, and both hold out promises for a better tomorrow. We have a duty and responsibility to work together to improve the condition of the people.
The president also assured his government will not change the country's laws to favor same-sex marriage.
And let me assure that this government has no plans to change the law on same-sex marriage. We have no authority, and we will not seek any authority to do so.
We're taking a break, but still ahead in the bulletin, some residents of two towns in the Yulokovo municipality have staged a protest over what they say is government's plan to relocate the main campus of the Eastern Region's first public university.
Good evening, welcome to Business on Joy News Prime. Now, government has cut short for work to commence on a $3 million tomato factory in the Ningu Pram district of the Greater Accra region. The facility is the first of 15 factories within the region to be constructed under the One District, One Factory initiative. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony, National Coordinator of the program, Gifty Ohene Kunedu, says a bill will soon be laid before Parliament to grant tax holidays to investors under the policy.
Government industrialization program is said to be facing some challenges with financial support from the various commercial banks in the country. As part of measures to address the funding gap, government has introduced several incentives, including collaboration with the banks for easy access to credit. So far, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has approved 57 factories to be established in the Greater Accra region. Lee Found Company Limited is the first factory to begin construction this year under the industrialization program as a self-financing project. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony, Deputy Trade Minister disclosed that the 14 remaining factories will be supported by government.
The company applied and registered with the 1D1F initiative in March of 2018. And today, barely 6 months down the road, we're here to witness the start of the construction. In Greater Accra, which is where we are today, we have approved over 57 businesses that we believe are ready and are talking to banks and financial institutions for investment. Out of those 57, 14 are deemed to be ready to start their business, and we are very proud to say Lee Found Food is one of the 14 today that we engage with. I think they deserve a round of applause.
The company will produce tomato paste, spices, and other food ingredients. National Coordinator for the One District, One Factory initiative, Gifty Ohene Kunedu, in an interview said, aside the incentives given by the government to the president, the government, through the Ministry of Trade and Industry, will lay a bill in Parliament for tax incentives for potential investors.
Recently, if you listen to the Honorable Minister for Finance, he gave hints of incentives that promoters could enjoy when they come under the 1D1F. And one of them is the 10% relief. They will take 10% of the interest that will be charged on the loan. Government will take that one. So, and the Honorable Minister, the Trade Minister, he's also developed some incentive package. But that one will have to be endorsed by Parliament. And when it's endorsed, we'll make it public for people to know. So there are incentive packages for those who buy into the 1D, 1F concept.
Any brief about that package?
Well, once it's not endorsed, it's very difficult to come out with it. If you talk about it and it doesn't come on, what do you do? So let it come out first. Let it get endorsed, Parliament endorsement, then we will make it public to everybody.
It is estimated that the factory, when completed, will produce 300 containers of tomato paste for the local and sub-regional markets.
Now, one key feature of the Cosmos Innovation Center Agritech Challenge is the formation of groups, but finding the right partners to work with is not an easy task. On KIC Profile today, team members of Soil Solutions tell us what drew them together and how they conceived a viable agribusiness concept that will enable farmers to check for nutrients in the soil.
This is the team. It's made up of myself, Dennis Appiah Sasaku, Edna, and Moses. Thank you very much.
Team formation is a very crucial aspect of the Cosmos Innovation Center Agritech Challenge. For Dennis, the quality of people you end up with is key in determining whether a group can survive the demanding terrain of this competition.
The biggest challenge in this KIC competition is the formation of the team. With the right team, you'd be able to progress very far in this competition. If you don't get the right team, you fail even from the beginning.
Innovators.
Dennis and Moses, who had met earlier, welcomed Edna to the group because they found her to be very competent.
Edna came in when we were going on the first market research. Fortunately, we sat close together where myself and Semisha was sitting. She was just sitting behind us. And based on that experience, both myself and Semisha realized that she's matured. That was the kind of people we're looking for in a team. So based on maturity, based on competence, based on experiences, we were able to form this team. And we have gelled from the beginning till now.
Soil Solutions is offering a simple, quick and easy way for farmers to check for nutrients in the soil. This, they say, will enable farmers improve yields.
About 90% of the farmers see the need to test their soil before planting or in the process of planting, but do not have affordable tools to test it. It's either you go to a research institute. Now you'd have to transport your sample all the way to any of these testing research institutes to be able to test your soil. So it comes with a lot of cost. And then the time factor in terms of getting your results is a lot, between 2 to 3 months before you'll be able to get your results after testing the soil. Meanwhile, by which time the planting season has already is already going to an end. But you need the test to be able to make an informed decision on the type of fertilizer and crop to plant. So a do-it-yourself soil test kit, we felt that it's very innovative for the farmer to be able to take a decision based on the results of the test.
Helping farmers test soil nutrients wasn't the first business concept the team came up with. A number of brainstorming sessions produced some very interesting ideas.
It was a journey.
It was a journey. We started somewhere. We had a lot of ideas. We started with a food idea, coming out with getting food delivered at your doorsteps. Food like stew, soup, stuff. And that was Yendi. The name started with Yendi. Yes. And we moved from there. We also brainstorm on getting the agri sector, providing finance, providing farmers with finance in the agri value chain. We work around that before finally settling on the do-it-yourself test kits.
Not having extensive knowledge in agriculture did not prevent the team of 3 from venturing into a project in soil science.
I am from a finance background. I basically work as a credit officer. And Edna is also from a tech background. Both Moses and Edna have a science background. So going into this competition, none of us had an agric background, but we were determined to learn. We started this program as a learning process, just knowing what is happening in agric.
With their sample almost ready, Soil Solutions is all set to wow judges at the final pitch event in October.
We are done with the design on how the kit should be like, the various parts of the kit. Yeah, we must have a spatula, the container, the reagents, the content of what the farmer should do.
According to a 2015 report by the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, about $4 million worth of food is lost due to soil deficiency. This simple do-it-yourself test kit will hopefully come in handy and prove useful to smallholder farmers across the country.
Away from that, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has lauded the central bank for its resolve to consolidate 5 banks into one entity. According to the chamber, the move was necessary as it will help offset some challenges small and medium-scale enterprises face with regards to access to credit. CEO Mark Bedu-Aboagye says the central bank's action will go a long way to help businesses expand.
The body for business in the country says local banks remain a major source of concern to the private sector. CEO of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu-Aboagye, says any disruption in the banking sector negatively impacts the private sector, especially SMEs. He lauded the central bank's initiative, saying it was timely as it has forestalled a looming financial crunch.
I think any disruption in the banking sector actually affects the private sector as a whole, especially the SMEs in the country. The reason is simple. A lot of businesses in Ghana, the SMEs, get their credit from these banks because some of them see the stock market as so huge for them to go there, or some of them also see the stock market as not well developed or acceptable to them. The banks have actually played a very good intermediary role in helping the private sector to operate efficiently. But if you don't ensure that we have strong, sound and stable banks, then eventually you are going to have a banking crisis that will affect the financial sector.
He advised the Bank of Ghana to put in place mechanisms that ensure that the system is checked from time to time and not wait for a long time before taking action. He further debunked the idea that government intervention by capitalizing the newly established consolidated bank is by no means taking a stronghold of banks. He also had a piece of advice for prospective players in the financial industry.
So for me, it's not about having 50, 60 banks. It's about having, if there are few, those banks are strong. So we encourage those who want to go into banking sector to come together with their finances and their human resource and other things to set up stronger local banks that can compete with these foreign banks.
Mark Bedu also supported the creation of a bank exclusively for businesses to enhance easy access to credit.
And that's all we have for you in business on Joy News Prime tonight. My name is Emmanuel Aboagye. Have a good evening.
Some residents of 2 towns in the Yilo Krobo municipality on Thursday staged a protest over the siting of the main campus of the first public university in the eastern region. According to the protesters from Krobo and Adangme, there is a grand scheme by the Kufuor administration to relocate the main campus of the University of Environment and Sustainable Development from Somanya to Bunto in the Cheme-Boakwa area and want government to rescind its decision. Correspondent Kofi Sian was there for Joy News.
Dozens of residents clad in red and black with red armbands and headgear hit the streets of Somanya and Odumasi on Thursday morning with their protest, despite the education minister's insistence that there was no such relocation plan. The protesters, after converging at the Gomenya Market Square, marched through the principal streets amidst brass band music. Police officers from Akosombo, Odumase, and Somanya provided security for the demonstrators. Secretary of United Krobo Foundation, Joshua Obojo, laid their grievances.
Vice Chancellor's residence, an auditorium, a library, main administration block, faculties, all the faculties are there, and truly it says that what we are saying, what we are hearing, what we've seen in book is not the main campus we are saying here. Therefore, we are asking the government he should come back and then explain things to us, else we are going on serious demonstration.
So you, in effect, you are saying that government has taken the VC's office to Bunsu,
yes,
at the expense of so many.
Yes. And then the major projects, all the major projects are going there, and that's what we are talking about.
The demonstration was taken to the Lower Menya Krobo Municipal Assembly, where they handed over their petition. The protesters then continued to the Somenya Lorry Station, where they handed over another petition to the Ilo Krobo Municipal Chief Executive, Ebenezer Tete Kupalo, amidst jeers that he's not done enough to address their concerns. Joshua Ogbojo says they will continue to pile pressure on government until it heeds to their concerns.
Going naked, if these things are not met within the 2 months. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Joy News checks reveal construction works have begun at Rome for the Somenya campus. Reporting for Joy News, Kofi Sian, Somenya.
Well, this is what the Minister of Education, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, had to say about the claims made by the protesters when he addressed the Meet the Press series on Tuesday.
President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was sworn into office. A contract had been signed by the predecessor government, and the university inaugurated 3 days before handing over University of Environment and Sustainable Development at Somenya. President John Dramani Mahama had cut the sword. Parliament, a few months earlier, had approved a commercial loan for the Brazilian company contractor to build the facilities. I must put on record that has not changed and will never change. And as we go to Somenya today, the contract that President John Dramani Mahama's government signed is the one that we are effecting. Let nobody misinform Ghanaians, and let people learn to speak the truth, because the records are always there. Honorable Finance Minister at that time, Honorable Setepe, comes from Somenya. He arranged the loan for Somenya, and he knows for a fact that what he signed is what is going on in Somenya. Government of Ghana has not taken a single faculty building outside Somenya that was contracted. And the contractors are in Ghana. The loan agreement can be made available. And indeed, I don't know if it's not for mischief, this thing was raised in Parliament, and the ministry submitted the contract, and they realized that nothing, not a dot, is being changed in this contract. So I don't know. Another loan agreement has been offered by the South Korean government through the South Korean Exim Bank. And that is being used to put up a campus in Bunsu. It affects no way the campus in Somenya. That contract was never available to the last government. It has been negotiated, signed, Parliament approved by this current government. And that is putting another campus in Bunsu, taking care of the latent facilities there, the Cocoa Research Institute and the Bunsu Agric College.
President Akufo-Addo has described as fruitless attempts to persuade the special prosecutor to drop his investigations into acts of corruption. This comes after Martin Amido has stated that there have been attempts to use some influential people in society to get him to back off some cases. The president was addressing a graduation ceremony of the prison service, said the Martin Amidou he knows will not succumb to persuasion and influence in the discharge of his mandate, adding that his government will be impartial in the prosecution of corrupt public officers.
Crime is becoming more sophisticated and multidimensional, and we cannot win the war against it if we engage in needless tussles for supremacy. Each one of you has a unique mandate towards the maintenance of peace and security of our country. I can assure you also that under my watch as President of the Republic, the laws of this land will be applied to the letter and without recourse to the ethnic, religious, or political affiliations of the persons or persons involved. And to those who are sending chiefs and men of God to the special prosecutor to intervene on their behalf, to try to dissuade Mr. Martin Amidou from conducting his investigations. From the little I know of the man, they are engaged in a fruitless venture.
The ceremony saw the passing out of 120 officers of the prison service. Issues of overcrowding, poor infrastructure and low morale amongst the staff were key concerns. Joy News is learning prisons facilities across the country built to accommodate 9,000 inmates are housing a whole lot more. President Akufo-Addo has therefore pledged to expand existing facilities and ensure completion of stalled projects. He also indicated plans to step up the reformation of inmates to make them employable when released.
The prison service in particular tends always to feel like the unloved and ignored child of the security services. With a total of 14,652 inmates in custody, it is important that the service be provided with the tools and resources to make its work easier. I'm not alone in expressing shock at the distressing images we see circulating on social media about our overcrowded prisons. Our prisons, with a capacity for 9,875 inmates, have exceeded their capacity nationally by some 48%. We need to do something about these figures, and my government is determined to do so. Following the successes chalked, the program is expanding steadily to cover prison facilities such as the Nsawam Medium Security Prison and to prisons in Takwa, Sekandi, Akuse, Obuasi, and Winneba. Under the program, 2 projects, namely the construction of a 2,000 capacity remand prison at Nsawam and the expansion of residential accommodation for staff at Anchor 4 Maximum Security Prison, have been started. I want to assure the prison service that even though these projects have stalled, government will get the contractors back on site very soon so that these projects are completed and operationalized.
Block all illegal routes to the Tema motorway and further demolish all illegal structures on the route within 2 weeks. That's the directive from the Roads Minister to the Ghana Highways Authority. The directive, according to Kwesi Amakwata, is to allow work to start on the expansion of the motorway from the current 2 to 6 lanes. He announced this during the commissioning of the Spintex East Legon Tunnel. The 23 million cedis project, which started in August last year, is expected to reduce traffic on the road. Government is hoping to replicate the project in traffic-prone areas across the country. Touching on the Accra-Tema motorway, Mr. Amakwata said protection of life and property informed the decision to enforce the directive on the motorway.
This project, with its simple but effective junction design, will bring great relief to the motorists who undergo the drudgery of commuting north and south of Accra across the motorway each single day. It will serve the communities of East Legon, Spintex, Nungwa, Teshi, Bemakam, Labadi, Cantonments, and the ministries area. Property
values in and around these communities will obviously appreciate in value. Health and well-being of motorists and other road users will improve. And above all, the economy will be enhanced through reduction in travel time and reduction in vehicular operating costs, thereby increasing productivity. My ministry intends to replicate this concept in many more areas, especially in the metropolitan and municipal areas, where major highways have been constructed and speeds are high, thus making pedestrian crossing unsafe. Construction of such scheduled tunnels, ladies and gentlemen, will be undertaken under the government of President Akufo-Addo in his first term to aid movement of both vehicles and pedestrians.
President Akufo-Addo has meanwhile assured his government will undertake massive roadworks across the country. That one, but moving on to other stories. The National Association of Graduate Teachers says it isn't happy at the manner in which the National Pensions Regulatory Authority and the Ministry of Finance are managing their pensions. According to the president of NAGRAT, Angel Kabunu, even though a request was made to the chief executive of the NPRA to transfer the temporary pension fund account to the GES after a stakeholders meeting in June 2018, it has not been done. He says a group will soon embark on a series of industrial actions that will eventually lead to a sit-down strike if their concerns are not addressed.
At a media briefing, the president of NAGRAT, Angel Kabunu, said the money was released to all other public sector workers in November 2017, except the Ghana Education Service. He says teachers' pension funds amounting to 1.7 billion cedis, which should be with the scheme, is still with the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, NPRA. He alleges there are machinations by politicians to sacrifice the general interest of teachers for their personal gains.
The Ghana Education Service money is being held by the National Pension Regulations Authority. The monies were released to our sister schemes in November 2017. And as we speak today, August 2018, the Ghana Education Service scheme have not been released to us. You may be wondering how much we are talking about. We are talking about 1.73 billion Ghana cedis, which was supposed to have been released in November 2017.
According to Mr. Kabunu, in 2020, many teachers will be retiring under the new scheme, but there is nothing available in the pensions fund for them. They are therefore demanding an immediate transfer of their funds from the temporal pension fund account being held by the NPRA to the Ghana Education Service scheme, else they will embark on a series of industrial actions.
The National Association of Graduate Teachers demands an immediate transfer of our funds from the TPFA held by the NPRA illegally to the Ghana Education Service scheme immediately. That the Ministry of Finance removes all impediments in the way of the NPRA and the Board of Trustees in this endeavor. That the position of the law and the out-of-court settlement should form the basis of decisions in the management of the schemes. We hold the following: that the Board of Trustees of the Ghana Education Service pension scheme be sufficiently allowed to manage and invest monies for teachers. The contributions for the occupational-based pension scheme, the government is again being asked to hands off its influence on our funds. if the monies are not transferred immediately, and I repeat, if the monies are not transferred immediately, NAGRAT as an association do not have a choice of engaging itself or embarking on series of industrial actions.
Efua Evans Chinnery's report for Joy News.
We're taking a break. And in the headlines, President Akufo-Addo has finally announced the long-awaited changes to his government and added one more minister to bring the number to 111. The president has meanwhile been busy speaking at a number of public engagements, including the Synod of the Global Evangelical Church of Ghana, where he's assured his government will not change laws to favor same-sex marriage. In business, government to grant tax holidays to investors under One District, One Factory initiative has sought a cut for the first $3 million factory to be constructed within the Ningo Pram Pram district of the Greater Accra region.